Fasting and tithing are enforced as God's will in many churches, but this opens up a big can of legalistic worms to worry about. Here are just a few of the more profound questions surrounding these doctrines. If I stop eating when I'm dead and pushing up tulips, does that count as a fast? Even if I'm too weak to eat in the grave, can I have juice? Fasting allegedly gives you miracle-working power. Next time you need a mountain moved, call a modeling agency to have them send over one of their girls to do the job. Some preachers are so far gone they think personal sin doesn't matter as long as they skip lunch the next day to show God how sorry they are till the next pretty dish comes along to tempt them. If I fast just until the evening meal and then I break my fast with 3 Burger King Whoppers, do I still get credit for starving myself all day long? Does a piece of X-Lax break your fast just because it tastes like food? Some Christians go on drink fasts because drinking is okay while eating is a sin. So why did God give us teeth if chewing is such a sin? Why didn't he just give us a gas tank like a car so we could go guzzle our dinner at Exxon? If I doze on the couch till fast day ends at sunset and I miss all the misery, does it count as much as someone else who's digging ditches all day long while they fast? Speaking of drink fasts, why is it okay to have cherry Kool-Aid but you can't freeze that Kool-Aid and turn it into a popsicle and eat it? Can I consume snow in the winter so long as I melt it in my mouth and drink it? Do imaginary meals eaten with your non-fasting family break your fast? Preachers tell you to at least fast till sunset. So what if you live up in Alaska where the sun doesn't set in the summer for months on end? Does God expect you to kill yourself? How do you fast if your boss asks you to take an important business client out to lunch? Where would you take him? To the Breatharian Bistro? In case you've never heard of the Breatharians, they live only on pure, fresh mountain air. Lunch menu at the Ladies' Fasting Seminar: hors d'oeuvres, cyber salad, ghost beef with vapor taters and absent asparagus, fantasy fudge cake, clear coffee and imaginary mints, $10.50 a head. Eating is sinful and self-indulgent, but enjoying a refreshing drink is perfectly okay. If you sip a liquefied brownie cheesecake through a straw, it doesn't ruin your soul, just your figure. Why do Christians fast? To combat the sin of mastication, chewing. Because Adam sinned in the garden of eating, not the garden of drinking. In midsummer, daylight hours last until about 10 p.m. in northern Europe. In midwinter, daylight ends around 4:30 in the afternoon. So if you fast until sundown in winter, does the Lord put you on part-time wages for that? Or do you get a pay bonus in the summer? Are American fasters less spiritual because their summer sun sets sooner? How about the extra hour in daylight savings time? Do I earn more blessing for having to set my clock back to starve an extra hour? What if you're fasting on a day you have to fly? If the sun is setting in England, but it's only 1 p.m. in America when you arrive, do you have to fast 5 extra hours, or can you go by English time? Just suppose you're strong enough to say no to that free airplane meal, but the flesh is getting weak. What if the stewardess is out of crackers? Do pretzels put you in the doghouse with God? What if the pastor flies from America to Europe during the big church fast, which is due to end at 6 p.m. tonight? Think of it, a whole 6-hour time difference. Does that mean the pastor gets to break his fast 6 hours before anyone else just because he's living 6 hours in the future on the other side of the planet? There's built-in inequality in the sacrifice of a church fast. What if the pastor weighs 400 pounds and this poor widow only weighs 98 pounds? Does the bony woman who sacrifices 5 pounds of lean muscle get more blessing from God than the pastor who fasts 5 pounds of fat? If I fall asleep on the couch and a big bug flies into my snoring mouth, have I broken my fast? If I dream about Ben and Jerry's ice cream while I'm asleep on the couch, have I broken my fast in my heart? Some Christians think you have to starve yourself in the prayer closet to prove how deeply you're in love with Jesus. But who starves themselves when they're full of joy and on their own honeymoon? We are the bride of Christ. We're to celebrate with Him instead of mourning as if something's wrong with the act of worship. Jesus always associated fasting with mourning, never with joy and happiness. Fasting teachers say we have to fast because Adam ate the forbidden fruit. If it was hard for Adam and Eve to resist diet food and apple, how much more of a temptation is that decadent devil's food cake we're about to put away in the freezer till after the fast? It's crying out, "Don't freeze me! Eat me!" Once we nibble a crumb off of that, we throw in the towel and say, "Oh, shoot! That stupid fast's all shot to hell anyway, so I might as well flunk fasting in style and go out with a bang." That chocolate devil only whets your appetite for other forbidden fruit. A strawberry cheesecake. Oh, I get it. Adam and Eve's forbidden tree was a hot point refrigerator. Now let's serve the second course, tithing, the preacher's favorite sermon topic. Since the proud Pharisee tithed on everything he owned, not just food, does the preacher get 1/10 of my CD collection? What if I only have 8 pairs of shoes? How would that big guy wear 'em anyway unless he punched holes in the toes? Just imagine some fat cat preacher who's convinced the congregation to follow the Pharisees' example and pay tithes on 10% of all they possess, not just their money. One Sunday afternoon, he's chilling out in his pastor's study, and the deacon delivers a box for him to open. But why does it have holes punched in the top? The pastor picks it up and shakes it. It goes, there's a note inside which says, "Dear Pastor Pete, in the Old Testament, the farmer counted his cows, and every 10th cow he counted got picked for the tithe. Caledonia the cat had kittens, and this one's the 10th one that popped out. God bless you, Pastor, Sister Davis." Then some man shows up at the pastor's next service holding out a plastic bag to him. "Here, Pastor." "What's in there?" the pastor asks. "Just some of my stuff. You said I had to pay tithes on everything I possessed. So pick the items out of this bag one by one, and every 10th one's yours, fair and square." So the pastor ends up with the man's gas and electric bills. What about the poor old lady who cuts corners in order to tithe her welfare check? Should she keep the Pharisees' new and improved version of God's tithing law and bring the preacher 10% of the cat chow she eats? Should she bring the preacher 10% of her food stamps? Can't you picture Brother Blowhard's butler buying the preacher's filet mignon with food stamps? Does the preacher get 10% of some old lady's prescription pills? No kiddin'. Scripture teaches that the biblical way to tithe is on food, not money. So with that in mind, if I buy a 10-pack of hot dogs, should I bring 1 wiener and put it in the offering plate for the preacher? Does the preacher want 1/10 of some kid's Hershey bar, even if it's all gooey and has messy fingerprints all over it? Next time I buy a 12-pack of Coke, I guess the preacher gets exactly 1 2/10 cans. Oh, heck, just make it an even 2 cans and call that your offering added to the tithe. If there's a hunk of dry cornbread left on the stove, should it go to the preacher or out to the birds? Would the preacher still want 1/10 of my homemade cookies even if they're burnt on the bottom? When I order a pizza, do I set aside one wedge for the preacher? What if he hates pepperoni? The Apostle Paul said, "Bless and curse not." Romans 12:14. But what do we see but Brother Holler cursing for dollars from his pulpit and saying it's a good thing Jesus keeps him on a leash, or he would use scary tactics which are better left unmentioned. You don't dare go into this preacher's church without promising him 10% of the wages earned by the sweat of your brow, or God will zap you for depriving him of his brand new sports car. So what if a homeless person works for food and he forgets to tithe on it? Would that preacher attack the poor guy with a stomach pump? Can you imagine Brother Holler pumping out those half-digested chicken nuggets and hollering, "The wealth of the wicked is mine"? What if Brother Holler got lost in a time warp and he ended up in the book of Acts, where Christians shared all their possessions and said nothing they owned belonged exclusively to themselves? That preacher would yell, "Left-wing communists!" Imagine how he would cry if Peter auctioned off his Rolex to feed a few hungry Christians. A preacher went to the church to pray. He wanted more tithes in his offering plate. He screamed out a curse to get in your purse and threatened all his slaves. "Non-tithers make me sick." A preacher's got the right to be rich. It's your job to work to pay for my church. So open those wallets real quick. I see non-tithers out there, the lady with the red hair. If you don't cough up, your life will get rough. If I were you, I would be scared. Next time you get ready to donate your yard sale leftovers to some charity, bring them to church instead. The zealous Pharisee tithed on all he possessed, not just on his money. Maybe, just maybe, the preacher will fit into those bib overalls you outgrew, and maybe his wife can use those moldy old sandals I'm about to donate to the Salvation Army. Leviticus 27:30 tells you that the true biblical tithe grows out of the earth. It doesn't roll off some printing press at the Federal Mint. But what if you took that scripture literally and you tithed on the right things? Your pastor would throw some of your homegrown tomatoes at you. That's what he'd do. Preachers holler at you to bring filthy lucre into God's house, quoting Malachi 3:8-10. That doesn't compute. Paul said our bodies are the house of God. 1 Corinthians 6:19. Does that mean I have to gobble up a $20 bill to bring 1/10 of my paycheck into the house of the Lord? A lot of Christians think that through fasting you not only cleanse your intestinal tract, you also cleanse your heart of sin. But you learn something new every day, don't you? The heart bone's connected to the colon bone, and you can flush sin down the commode. Thanks for listening.